Okay, I think we're live, Stephen.
Hey, good morning. And I want to welcome everyone back to the second day of the AAFD conference. My name's Stephen Reimel, and I just want to welcome Brian Dillon. He's our co-chair. And we're going to get started here. So today we're going to have our Franchisee Leadership Council, which is actually our leadership summit. And we're going to assess our progress over the past year and to set our council goals for the coming year in order to help form our coalition of franchisee associations to advance the mission to promote total quality franchising. So the attendees, if you come today, will have the opportunity to join our task force work groups to collectively pool our resources. And we want to try and solve some of the most difficult problems facing franchisees. And this is all in preparation for the 30th anniversary of the AAFD Franchisee Leadership Summit next year in Mesa, Arizona, scheduled for May 1 to the 4th.
Great. And so after this, we're going to go into our afternoon sessions. The first one we're going to have is our guest speaker, Rohit Chopra from the FTC, which is going to be a great segment. He's going to offer insights into the efforts being made by the FTC to regulate the franchise business model and what franchisees can do to report abuses by franchisors. Unfortunately, Chairman Lena Khan was unable to make it today for our general session number 2, but we're going to have a great panel today with Keith Miller and Robert Zarko that are going to discuss the FTC Unfair Practices Authority. And then, Stephen, what's after that?
Yeah, after that, we're going to have the task force workshops. We still have the business education task force presentation, and we're going to have a group purchasing presentation. And then finally, at the end, we have the signature event, Total Quality Franchising Awards Ceremony, to recognize our stars and rising stars who are driving the success of the AAFD and fighting for the advancement of fair franchising. So I think that's it for this morning, and we're going to go to the next session, which is the Franchisee Leadership Council. Do we have Rich? Is he available? I see Bob. Oh, you're here by phone, are you, Rich?
Yeah, here by phone.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we're going to start the FLC, the Franchisee Leadership Council meeting. I'm one of the co-chairs, and Richard Stroney is the other co-chair. He's on here by phone. And today's meeting, the agenda, I don't know if we have it up on the screen, or do we not have the slides? Agenda, I don't know if we have it up on the screen, or do we not have the slides? Agenda, I don't know if we have it up on the screen, or do we not have the slides? Agenda, I don't know if we have it up on the screen, or do we not have the slides? We got some feedback going here.
Yeah. I am not able to log in, and I'm getting a message that the stream is not up on either my phone or on the panel. I don't know if I can be heard.
Here we have the slides. Okay, there we go. So now you can see Richard's beautiful face. Okay, so the next slide, we have the agenda. So we're going to start out with a year in review, talk about some new chapters, some inactive chapters. I will then speak about the task force work groups. And then we're going to have an update from Keith Miller. He's the Director of Public Affairs and Engagement. And then we'll have Bob Pervin give his update from the chair. And then we'll have our FLC elections discussion and talk about our goals and objectives. And then we'll have to save the date for next year's summit. So is Rich able to join?
Yep, if we want to advance to the next slide.
Yep, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this is a really successful, or this chart shows an amazing level of success that the AAFD's had over the past, well, since 2016, and especially over the past year itself. You can see the the growth in 2020. And just, this chart represents net member growth. So this is growth in total members. It's not the actual number of members. So this chart, again, 2020, tremendous year for the AFD. And you can see in 2021, the year to date, we're already on track to probably exceed where we were in terms of net growth from 2020, which is great. There are some amazing franchise opportunities, even with restrictive practices of franchisors. I would say that franchisees need the AFD now more than ever in terms of understanding how to effectively operate their franchisees and work with franchisors. I think the question we've all got to ask from an FLC perspective and a membership perspective is, how can we help get the word out about the AFD, whether to exist franchise units that are currently part of the AFD and expand the base of who we have now, but also with other franchisees or franchise systems where they may not have heard of the AFD or the benefits of what the AAFD can do for them. But again, this chart shows that we've had some amazing successes in bringing new membership on board. I think if we show the next slide, you'll see the existing list of actively managed chapters in the AAFD. I won't read the names, but there's a good number of franchise systems that we've already represented. And these, again, are the active ones. The next chart will show our newest members since 2019. And showing this one because it's kind of where we last met in person. Last year's session kind of got canceled. We've moved into here in a virtual environment, but since 2019, you can see these 24 franchise systems come on board again, presenting that we have continued to spread the word and we continue to grow our organization so that we can continue to support systems and franchisees through their processes. And I'll pause there just so folks can see the systems that have come on board. And what I'll also say is both this chart, utilize the franchisees if you can, and if it makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish, whether professionally or personally. This is how we help support the franchise systems. We all know that we as franchisees continue to work hard for our franchises and our organizations, but let's continue to help using franchise systems that belong to the AFD. While we've done a really good job, there's some challenges from the industry and COVID situation. We have some of our franchise chapters have struggled, and we've lost them from the AFD because of COVID challenges. So it's not all peaches and roses, but we've done a good job. But again, keep in mind, we don't franchise systems to fail. Continue to support them. We want to provide the leadership and best practice solutions, which we're doing through this conference itself, and more to follow on that. As I think we'll switch to Stephen to talk about some of the task force groups that can continue to help the franchisees, us as well as future members.
Okay. Well, thank you, Richard. Yeah, let's go to the task force work groups. So what's the goal of the task force work groups? We're trying to create positive change in the franchisee rights movement. Yesterday we spoke about empowerment movements, and we had the speakers, Senator Cortez Masto, as what Congress is doing, what the Senate is doing regarding franchisee rights. And of course, we need some grassroots movements on our part to get franchisees involved. If everyone else is going to help us achieve our goals, we need to step in and fill in the ranks. So we need the work groups to start getting back together again. Our purpose is to solve some of these most difficult problems in franchising. So we have a list of names here of the active list of work groups. Of course, the Empowering Franchisee Association work group. We've been steady at work all year long. We were the presenter yesterday, and I hope everyone enjoyed that session. And then we had the Business Education and Development. They'll be presenting later on this afternoon. and of course the group purchasing. They've all been active over the past year. What I'd like to do, we have 4 inactive task force work groups: the marketing and marketing funds, the GMF, private equity, which should be a very active work group, considering the involvement and the spreading of private equity throughout the economy. We have protecting franchisee equity, and then we have market and territorial protection and rights to compete. Now, there has been a suggestion we should break that last one up: market and territorial protection and rights to compete. We should break those up into 2 separate work groups. But I really am asking all the other franchisees on this call to reach down inside and understand that this, you're part of the franchising world, and we can only help ourselves by getting active in these groups. We have to effect positive change. We have to solve these problems. They're not going to go away. In our group, I'm from the Griswold franchise group, Griswold Home Care. Our franchise was family run for 30 years. We were very successful with it. We were very happy with it. And we had a general counsel that the franchisees really enjoyed working with, because the general counsel supported the franchisees. But after they sold to private equity 10 years ago, we've had 4 different CEOs in 10 years. That's a lot of relationships to keep mending and reaching out to. And even though we won an award for the best franchise agreement a year or 2 ago, we're back in the process of renegotiating another franchise agreement. So this thing is a never-ending process. It doesn't go away. When you're in franchising, it's just you have to stay with it. And I'm really asking all the franchisees on this call to think about what they can do to join one of our work groups. We need to get members to step up and be leaders. And I'm asking people to step up. Now, Amy, I think, has a poll that she can run for us. And maybe Amy needs to explain it to everybody. But we want to see how you feel about these work groups to get some feedback from the franchisees. So, Amy, do you want to explain the poll? Can you do that? I see it up on our screen. Does everyone see the poll? I hope they see the poll.
I'm just going to try to come back into studio.
Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, great. So if you, while you're in live session on your screen, to the right-hand side, there is a chat and a feature called polling. If you click over on polling, we're just asking everybody to answer the questions of how important are task force work groups to you. And you just select your response and hit submit. And that will really help us as a task force committee to try to understand what it is that you as franchisees would like to participate in and what we can really help drive the AFD agenda. This is really your committee. We are here to really help you as individual business owners, and the FLC is really designed to be the driving force of the agenda of the AAFD. So hearing from you and your active participation is really what's going to help drive our success.
While you're answering the poll, Amy, would it be appropriate for me to give the results of yesterday's poll?
Sure.
Okay, so yesterday I asked the poll whether or not your franchisor empowers you. And so I have the poll results here. 7.4% said yes. 18.5% said maybe. 3.7% said I don't know. And 70.4% said no. So as I interpret those results, it seems to me that the franchisors are not really interested in teaching us about their business or empowering us to be independent. So we have to do that on ourselves, and that's what these work groups go towards. These work groups, synergize all the information that we all have across the board, and try to create solutions and to get recognition for all of our franchisees. So, based upon the poll results yesterday, I really would like to see some of our franchisees step into leadership roles. We'll talk about the elections a little bit later on for the FLC. Rich and I have been doing this. We've been co-chairs, but it's really been the two of us with Amy and Bob and Keith running this the show here. And we really need other people to join in or fill the other leadership positions, the secretary, the treasurer role, and to develop a succession plan for the FLC, because we just we can't let it lose the momentum that we have going forward. Are we able to get any of these poll results right now, Amy, or no?
The polling should be instant. I can't tell how many have taken it yet because I'm in studio. But we can send a text message to everybody and let you know what the results were.
Okay.
And the polling will be up until this session ends. So if you're not taking it right now, as long as you take it before the end of this meeting, I'm just told we have 14 votes so far. So that's great.
Yeah.
So keep plugging away. Okay, so I'm going to go off screen and bring back the PowerPoint.
Okay. So that's what I have for the task force work group updates. As I said, only 3 have been active. We have 4 that need a lot of help. And like I said, private equity is a big one for us. Well, for me personally, it's a big one. And I'm also aware of the news feeds that I'm seeing and I've heard about. There's a lot of discussion. Even there are hearings being held in Congress about private equity, particularly in the healthcare field, where private equity apparently is taking ownership of quite a bit of the healthcare. What do you want to call it? The space.
Stephen,
a lot of doctors are selling their practices, so you have a lot of private equity stepping in. So that'd be a great topic for people to get involved in.
Stephen, am I being heard now? I can't tell if I'm on or off.
I can hear you. I can see you.
There you go. I could see me there, but I couldn't. I couldn't tell if I was live with you guys. But
sure, go ahead.
I wanted to come in just behind you and to make just a couple of comments. One about the task forces. The 3 that have been active have been active for good reason. But we were in a pandemic year, and we were dealing all during the last 2 years with almost 2 years now with real crises for a lot of our chapters. So it wasn't. I won't say it was by design, but it wasn't too surprising that some of the past task forces we weren't pressing them to do it because we were running scared.
Understood.
And I guess the other comment that I would make, and I could reserve this to my little section, is that our growth has clearly been impacted by the fact that the pandemic unfortunately shone a great bright light on the already existing fissures between a franchisee and a franchisor, and a lot of the problems that groups were having were exacerbated by what the pandemic brought to the business challenges. So some of that is trackable. Anyway, back to you.
No, I appreciate those comments, and yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't mean to imply that people were not involved or engaged. The pandemic affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So I do appreciate people's efforts to stay involved, but I think as we come out of this pandemic, we need to just step up and get involved again to reemerge or reengage with franchising. So next on the agenda is Keith Miller. Is he online here? Keith, are you there?
I don't see him in studio.
No Keith. Okay. Well then, Bob, we can go right to you. You're giving you updates from the chairman.
All right, and hopefully Keith will join us. He may have had an emergency at his business.
Sure, no, I understand.
But thank you for the floor, and I'll try to be brief as well. I really have three major themes that I want to raise to the council, and I want to thank lots of folks from being here on our attendance. Our attendance is staggeringly great compared to any other event we've had, and of course that's one of the benefits of being able to be virtual, is that we've eliminated the travel cost, and we have over 220 people registered. I don't know if they're all on our call right now today. I'm not sure how clear it was that everybody is welcome at our franchisee leadership council meeting. The council is, in fact, our summit. All of the chapters have elected delegates, and the council is our legislative body. So this is the body that will drive the agenda of the AFD, both the political agenda and our initiatives, and to figure out where you want the AFD to go. I chair because I'm very passionate about it. I personally chair our group purchasing, and really our group purchasing one maybe is a bit of a misnomer, because it's really more about supplier mandates. Well, it's equally about supplier mandates and the opportunities that we can, as an association, have to embrace group purchasing, both at the chapter level and at the AFD level. And in my mind, the biggest abuse of franchising comes from the promise that when you buy a franchise, you're going to benefit from group purchasing, and the reality that franchisors benefit from the group purchasing, and very often mandate suppliers that are not in your best interest, upcharge those costs and receive rebates that they don't share with you. That's not always the case. In the perfect world, we would embrace group purchasing. We would embrace supplier mandates, because they would be negotiated for the benefit of franchisees. So our challenge is, and I'll be repeating this on our task force session later today, which I hope many of you will attend. But our challenge is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but to embrace group purchasing, but to make sure that franchisors are dealing with their franchisees on an equitable basis and delivering that promise. The reason I mention it now is that the AFD has developed a supplier mandate member benefit survey that we have been pressing to our members. And the goal was to get over 1,000 responses to our member benefit survey, so we have real data, a sufficient sample that we can take to Congress, we can take to Senator Masto, we can take to the Federal Trade Commission and say, look, this is what's happening. Franchisors are mandating our sources of supply, but they're not delivering quality and value. And it's really important. Keith is back with us, so I'll cut back to him in just a moment. But we want to make sure we have that data, and Keith needs that data, because without a real sample, it's hard for us to make our case. So I want to urge the council. I want to urge all the attendees. Right after this conference, we will resend the survey out. Jennifer Foreman was the primary architect of our survey. It does take 10 or 15 minutes for you to fill out, but boy, it's really needed. And if we want to have a voice, this particular survey is our petition. This is our way of describing. I want to draw your attention that the survey was intentionally focused on generic types of services, not things that a franchisor would normally be able to say, this is tied to our brand and we have the right to dictate where you buy stuff. It's stuff like insurance and where you get your phone. Some of the things that the AFD is able to offer, which many franchisors mandate and require. There are some things that are trade specific, POS systems, for example, that are on the survey. But I really want to urge our members and our delegates and our chapters to get behind the survey. If we can get 1,000 responses, and we can even go outside our membership for those responses, we'll be able to take that data to our legislatures. So please do come to that. And then the third thing that I want to address on my little piece is tonight we're going to, when I say tonight, late afternoon for some of us and prime time on the East Coast, we're going to have the opportunity to have our Total Quality Franchising Awards ceremony. Normally this is a banquet that we have. It's our singular signature gala event. But I really want to urge people to be there to recognize your peers and to recognize people in the franchise in the community that have done great work to celebrate in the interest of fair franchising, in the interest of total quality franchising. And I'm really hoping we'll have a great turnout for that. And with that, back to you.
Well, thank you, Bob. I think Keith is still he's trying to figure out when he can join us here. So, Rich, do you want to talk about the FLC elections? Can you do that?
Is the connection better for you now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Apologies for that. 4G isn't always 4G, I guess. Yeah. So the elections. I know Stephen had touched on this earlier. The elections are important. Number one, it's your chance to serve an organization that supports you and what's important to you. So I want you to really think about how you can help, whether it's on the task force themselves, which are equally as important, but also on the FLC, because our goal here, and we'll have another slide in a moment, but our goal here is to support the AAFD and their mission and their goals around fair franchising. Right? It comes down to simply as that. But to do that, we do need the infrastructure. Now, Stephen and I have been co-chairs, as you mentioned before, for the past year. We're continuing to serve as best we can, but we need help as well. And the good thing about it is you all, as the members of the FLC and the representatives of your own AAFD chapters, you get to pick who your leadership is. But again, we need people to raise their hands to offer to help. So the positions that we do need to fill currently are treasurer and secretary. I promise you that, if you raise your hand, you will not be spending a lot of extra time and taking away from your business. But we do need some help to cover some aspects of this committee. And then upcoming in 2022, probably in time for our next in-person conference, which will be shared in a little bit, will be the chair and co-chairs, Stephen and I, our roles, and then the treasurer and secretary, if whoever steps up now can and is elected to continue. So just keep that in mind. Again, we're not asking you to do anything outside your comfort zone. If you have the skill, the talent, and the time to contribute, we have quarterly meetings, right? That's the extent of it. And then behind the scenes, we do meet 2 or 3 times to discuss upcoming needs and planning the agenda for these quarterly meetings themselves. So again, we need your help. If there's someone that you'd like to nominate, please do that. We will not take nominations and force them into the role. We'll have a discussion with them, but feel free to nominate people you think might be able to contribute or have expressed interest as well. And I think the next slide talks to our goals and objectives on the FLC. Again,
hang on, Rich. Can you hang on for a minute? I think
absolutely.
I think Keith is available and he's trying to get in. So I don't know who's in the studio. Can we do that? Is it too soon? I don't know. Is Keith going to join us with video, or is he going to just call in?
I think he's still trying to get in based on the chats that are popping up for us. I'm going to continue and
go ahead. Keep going.
Matt, we'll keep going, and then we can circle back to him once he's live and we hear his voice. So
okay,
go ahead and advance the bullets here. Just go to the full slide set. So our role on the FLC is really to work with Keith, who you'll hear from in a bit, and also has a session later around the legislative activities going on. We definitely want to focus on how we as an organization can continue to support fair franchising, as well as the laws that help support our franchising activities. We need to elect a board. It's one of those things that's part of our charter. And it is an election, so it's up to you as the participants to determine who is leading this organization. Our job is also to help support and reinforce the value of the task force and the committees and how they operate and how we can make sure that they're operating effectively. The directory itself, it's just a resource for us as franchisees, as part of the AFD. And then we want to make sure that we encourage and support active participation in these calls. These calls are for the members at large. They're there. We hold them to support the activities in support of franchising. So we're here as servant leaders of the rest of the nation so that we can make sure that the AFD act on mission, keep Bob and team on with what has to happen, but also we provide the value back to the organization. And I think that's the critical component of what we're trying to accomplish here. And you know, Stephen, feel free. Anything else you want to share?
Okay. I think Rich had dropped off for a minute there, but yeah, we're still waiting for Keith to join. You there, Keith? No? Well, one of the things that I wanted to highlight, and it feeds into Keith Miller and what he's trying to achieve. I'm also an attorney, and I do some research in terms of what the franchisee protection laws are out there, and it varies from state to state. I'm in New Jersey. New Jersey has a Franchise Practices Act that does protect franchisees. Other states have rules about the FDD having the Franchisee Association identified in the FDD. But there aren't any laws necessarily to protect franchisees from retribution, from franchisors retaliating against franchisees. And I think that's a shame that in this country we have laws that don't, we don't have laws that protect franchisees. And so I think that's one of the things on a grand scale that we should be looking at as an FLC is to promote regulations or laws, whether it's the state level or at the federal level, that protects franchisees, just to be identified in the FDD. Oh, I see Keith. Is Keith able to join us now?
Oh,
you there, Keith?
I'm alive. I don't know. It
You're
sounded
live.
back. I could see everybody. I could hear everybody.
Good.
I've had other try to silence me before too. So yeah, at the beginning when you first called me, I'd gotten a last minute call from Commissioner Chopra's office. It's like, well, I better take this. So
Okay.
Anyway, so from a legislative standpoint, I mean, and everyone's going to hear from me for an hour tomorrow morning going over kind of the legislative initiatives. So I'll be short right now. But the main thing is we need to engage franchisees. It can't be one or two people doing it. It's that we really need to be the feet on the ground in a sense, or on the phone, whatever the case may be, to engage elected representatives. And as you heard me say yesterday with Senator Cortez Masto, that we need to do a better job of helping her, in this case, help us. There's potential, lots of legislation we can do federally and statewide, but we can only do it if franchisees are engaged. It's not going to just happen for them. They're going to have to do it. And so we need, our committee needs to engage franchisees, but also, be the kind of the ears on the ground, so to speak, of what's happening now. Some of what we've been pushing has changed this last year. Obviously, the pandemic brought out things like, we'll help you by reducing your hours if you sign a release. I mean, that was something that, even though releases has been around for a long time, they kind of went on steroids last year and became a high priority. And things just change, evolve over time. You see a lot of hotel owners that hadn't had problems historically really having some issues now in this guest economy and new world. So that's the committee that needs to get put together, look at what we want to work on legislatively and engaging franchisees. So I'll leave it at that because tomorrow morning, everyone's going to hear a lot from me.
Well, thanks for the update, Keith. Yeah, and I have that on our list of goals and objectives is to form a legislative affairs committee at the FLC level. I mean, this is something that we really should be active on. I can't emphasize it enough. No one else is going to do it for us if we don't do it ourselves. And, I have seen now, I've been a franchisee for 20 plus years, and I've seen a lot of things that go back and forth between franchisors and franchisees. And I know franchisees feel vulnerable. So I just think that we need to step in and put their boots on the ground and get some work done to help Keith with his efforts. So
well, I think one point you made earlier, you had negotiated a great franchise agreement. Now your cousin has how many changes of leaders, and I think it's important to always be negotiating those contracts with your franchisor, but the legislative front is kind of the harder long game of it, of making sure it stays there. Those protections stay there, because the risk we always have of it, we could have a great franchise agreement today. Private equity buys us out in 2 years and completely changes that franchise agreement. We're at ground zero. And hopefully we can negotiate that. And as I say, we keep doing both. People always, what should we do? This, or this? And I'm always one, you need to bait a lot of hooks. You never know where you're getting your bite from.
Well, Keith, can you speak to, I know the IFA, the International Franchise Association, and because my wife was general counsel for 20 years of a franchisor, so I had the opportunity to attend one of those conferences. But can you speak to their lobbying activities? I'm sure you've witnessed it. You know how strong they are and what they do. Can you speak to that for a minute or two?
Well, I always kind of jokingly say sometimes I'm out there, like when we were in Oregon, I'm out there pushing for a few franchisees and going up against a multi-million-dollar lobbying company funded by multi-billion-dollar company. The IFA is primarily funded by franchisors, so they're going to lean to franchisors. Yes, they do have franchisee board members, and they do have a franchisee forum, but those people are primarily put there by their franchisor. So it's kind of like an FAC versus an association, that where an FAC is handpicked by the franchisor. That's kind of the challenge with that. So they're gonna take no change. I mean, when you look at what they did with the FTC and the franchise rule, they talked about changes, but when they actually submitted their personal testimony, I guess, it was no changes. Everything's fine as is. This industry is growing well, and the industry is doing well. They've tended to put their head in the sand of some of the problems, and we need to step back. I mean, they're funded again by primarily doors, so they're not going against franchisors. Maybe at some point we can get them to take a neutral position, but that's about all. Bob?
Yeah, when they acknowledge a problem for the last 40, 45, 50 years, when they acknowledge that there's a problem, their response is very uniformly, we'll disclose it. We won't fix it, we'll disclose it. and that's been the real burden. And for the most part, the IFA has been able to deflect all of our need for action reform to an idea of we'll include it in our FDD that we have this problem, or that we have the authority to tell you where you buy stuff, or we have the authority to tell you whatever it is that we're going to do. So what we need to get the Federal Trade Commission in particular, but Congress, to realize that disclosure is a failed concept. It's not invaluable, but it is not a substitute for saying you can't do bad things.
Actually, you could argue the disclosure basically says, we told you we're going to do bad things, and
Right.
we did. So
And
what's your problem? What's your problem?
Well, I read, and I know, Bob, I did this. I was reading an article. I finally had a chance to finish it. It was in the Penn State Law Journal several years ago. I know you've commented on it, but one of the arguments that the franchisors make is that their lobbyists make to the Congress and the elected officials is that, you don't need regulations to regulate this industry because franchisee associations do that for you, and they're very strong, and you don't need regulations. And the fact of the matter is, when a franchisee association forms, they don't want to recognize it. So it's kind of like a reverse argument. They want to use it on the sword on one edge, saying you don't need regulations because the franchisee associations will represent their own interests, and yet they won't recognize us at all in reality.
Send me that article. I think we can make great use of it.
and to put that even further, they say we don't want government involved, but what have they done this last year? Advocated for government money to franchises, and I think it was needed. I don't disagree with it, but on one hand, they're saying no government involvement. On the other hand, SBA keep lending money to franchisees so they can open outlets. Well, if you don't want government involved, I mean, in the SBA money, basically government inserting itself into the free market banking system, because most of those franchises wouldn't have been able to get a free market banking loan. And again, I'm in favor of those SBA loans, but that's why it's so important that Senator Cortez Masto, now 2 bills relating to the SBA, are important. It's like, okay, it's fine for government to give out money, but there should be bumpers around it, guardrails on it. And that's what the industry's fighting. I mean, the industry is so much set on people making money on selling franchises. And that's something we've got to draw attention to. It's not just the selling franchises, but we get very few stories. There's hundreds of stories in all the trade magazines of, look at these new franchises, or they just signed a new contract. I mean, there are very few stories of 5 years later of where are those franchisees today.
Yeah. Well, and I want to reinforce to all the franchisees on the call, you really need to take the time. I know Amy, I think she put it as a resource for the conference. You really need to take the time to read Senator Cortez Masto's report about the 10 different franchisees that she reported on and the problems that they encountered. I know Jonathan spoke to 2 of them yesterday, but it's really eye-opening to read this report as to what some of these franchisors are doing. And this adds to the reasons why we need to get involved.
It's good sleeping material too. It's very detailed. Having seen it quite a few. So that report was actually 15 months in the making. It started pre-pandemic. I can't tell you how hard it is to get a U.S. Senate report out, and all the reviews through legal and stuff. And her staff did a great job. With that. And I think, I was quoted in the Franchise Times, and I think one of the things that you really need to look at that report, a couple of them, like Curves, are kind of older stories. Even Quiznos is an older story. And then you have newer stories like the Burger M, et cetera. But I think the real message almost is, well, nothing's changed, right? When people point out, well, those are old stories. Well, okay, those are old stories. These are new stories. The bad part is nothing's changed, right? New stories look like the old stories. And that's what we really need to put that face on it, that every time there's a failure in franchising, a franchisee probably has filed bankruptcy and lost everything they have. And that point really gets missed.
Yeah. Let me come in behind you, Keith, and compliment your work, but I want all of our members to appreciate going back to the effectiveness of the AFD and specifically the effectiveness of one Keith Miller. Keith had a great, which means we had a great impact on Senator Masto's report. Keith was very active with her offices, and they appreciate Keith's involvement. This is your member dollars at work making a difference, and it's something we should be very proud of. There is a true sea change that's going on. There are things that Keith can't talk about that he's working on, that we're holding our breath and very excited about, that we would love to be able to share with you today, but they're not germinated enough to get to that point. But I just want to say to you all, stay tuned, but get behind us. Keith's going to be telling you, he's already told you a couple of times that he needs your voices. He needs you to be writing to your congressman and writing to your senator. And we need to, I want to reiterate, we need you to take that member benefit survey, because that's how we take your opinions and your strife and quantify it and make it valuable for us to use in legislative context.
Well, and then I think, Bob,
as Bob said, there's.
Hang on, Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to what Keith said and what Bob and Stephen have said, I think it's key that we keep is focusing on working with the franchisor and the FDD and taking steps on the legislative side. We have to do both. It's not one or the other, and it's the balance of the two that's going to give us the opportunities that we can have to be effective as a franchisee.
Yeah, and Keith, I want to let you go, but I want to thank you for saying that, Rich. Our end goal is not to win the war with franchisors. Our end goal is to partner with franchisors. Our end goal is to, what we talk about, total quality franchising, is what you thought you were going to get when you bought your franchise. And it's to have a great marriage, not a divorce, but to get what we thought franchising was all about. So, but thank you, Keith. I'm sorry, Rich, because we do need to make that clear, that our goal is not just to beat up franchisors; it's to have a great relationship. Keith, go ahead.
Well, you had mentioned some things about, I can't talk about the, that report again was 15 months in the making, and I don't think anyone knew about it until it came out. And it's that old saying of in Washington, D.C., if you want a friend, get a dog. If you want to keep a secret, only tell your dog. And so that was, I could tell you that was an interesting day. That was released on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And actually the press was given an advance copy Friday afternoon before that, with an embargo date and time of 9 a.m. And at 10 minutes to it being released, Senate Legal decided it wanted to take one more look at it before it was released. So we had press reporting on it, and I couldn't even talk about it yet because it was held up. So kind of the interesting behind the inside baseball scene sometimes. But there is a lot going on, and I guess Zoe just pasted the link to the report. So the report itself is about 40-something pages, and then they actually put in all of the comments made to the franchise rule workshop in the report, and then there's a whole bunch of pages of the footnotes or end notes. They all came at the end that they refer it. And again, I kind of go back. The report itself didn't so much bring out any new news. It kind of put all the old and current news all in one report to draw attention to it. And one of the things I'll talk about tomorrow was how to contact your Senate office to show your support for that report. And quite frankly, also Cortez Masto's office, to make sure she knows that you appreciate how much the effort that her office put into that report.
Yeah, Keith, let me follow up on that. One of the things, and I know you've made this ask before, and I took the time to forward the information you had given us. I forget what the issue was to my senators and my representatives. But one of the things that I'd like the FLC to focus on is making that process a lot easier. It can be time consuming when getting online and responding. writing a letter. I think what we can do at the FLC level is to, when you have an ask, that we can streamline that process and generate a response or a letter that all the franchisees can use and get it out to their representatives. And that's a task that I think the FLC should take on, and we should, promote within our franchisees.
Yeah, we need to make it as easy as possible. Hopefully, I still do some shells for franchisees to send in, and you'll still get one sent into the office. Put your name here, dear Senator, or whatever. So, but my goal, the great part about a lot of the legislative efforts is it really doesn't cost anything. And then my goal is to make it simple enough that each franchisee spends no more than 5 minutes on a specific ask. And, people ask me, will it work or will it be heard? It's like, I don't know. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But how many things can you do in less than 5 minutes that doesn't cost you anything? That might help. And, it just makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
That might help. And it just makes it easier. Mm-hmm. That might help.
We got some replay here.
It just makes it easier.
Okay.
I just learned I can't be an attendee and a participant at the same time.
You have to turn the sound off on the attendee, Bob.
Okay.
Yep.
I wanted to see if there was anything in chat that we should be addressing, and maybe you're able to do that.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I wanted to see if there was anything in chat from questions from attendees that we should be addressing, and I guess I don't know how to do that. So,
well, it says that Jen posted a link to the survey, but I'm not sure how to do that myself. Do we have the survey results? Can we put that up somewhere?
Well, I think you mean the poll.
The poll, yeah. I'm sorry.
The survey is the member benefit survey, which we will repost.
Oh, okay. Okay, Rich, do you have anything else you want to add? I don't hear Rich.
Yeah, I don't hear him either.
You there, Rich?
I know that he's traveling and coming in on the phone.
Yeah. Okay, I think they had the results up here on my screen. I can see them. So you have 37.5% said the task force work groups are very important. 43.8% said important. 0 said not important. I like that idea. 12.5% said I don't know what a task force work group is. And 6.3% said send me more information. So it looks like the majority, 80% or more, think that these task force groups are important. So I think that's a great result for us, and we just need to.
And might I respond to the 12.5% that don't know what a task force is?
Well, I think they said it's, yeah, go ahead.
So if you don't, I guess, I don't know when it was, Keith, maybe 4 years ago, we had a session not like this that was a listen in, and Keith and I took 12 major areas of franchise strife, I guess I'll say, and we had a roundtable of all of our a general session of attendees to discuss all of these different issues. And at the end of each issue, we said, do we want to create a task force to address that issue? And we ended up with 6. Some of them have been merged, and some of them we've added a 7th one in the time. But these were basically things that came from the delegates at our conference. I guess it was in 2017.
I can probably pull this up.
Well, while he's looking for it, we came up with things.
Yeah, it should be that. Try that.
By vote of our by vote of our members, by vote of our delegates at our conference, we created these task forces. The idea was that the task forces would work throughout the year. We would figure out what we think the problem is, what we think the solutions are, and what things we can do as a task force to impact those particular matters. So if you're having an issue, and I'm going to be very selfish here, if one of your issues is that your supplier mandates are being unfairly imposed upon you, join the group purchasing task force. If one of your issues, I'm choosing ones that are most prevalent, I guess, but if one of your issues is that your company was bought by private equity and they don't seem to give a rip about your franchise system, that's one of many things in their portfolio of assets, and that they're either pulling money out of your business right and left or trying to structure it for resale, and you need to have a business that's operating well, you need to join the private equity task force. If you're concerned that the equity that you thought when you bought your franchise, that you owned a business and that you have equity ownership in that business, and now you're learning that you're an indentured servant to your franchisor, excuse me for being so harsh, join the franchisee equity task force, because that task force is looking for ways to reclaim the mantle of business ownership. So some of these things are things that if you look over the different task forces, say, raise your hand, say, I want to volunteer, I want to lead, and get involved. Again, keeping in mind that our goal is to improve the franchising world, not to take it down.
Mm-hmm. And Bob, let me just add, it's not just the delegates. You can nominate someone else that's in your membership or in your board of directors, or as a franchisee, they can participate. So it doesn't just have to be the delegates that do this.
Absolutely.
Maybe what we can do is we have the slides from this presentation. We can send those out to all of the members, and we can do a better job of promoting each of those task force and use that as a means to garner interest and support of those.
Well,
Again,
one
part of it
mistake
is
that we
education,
made.
right?
One mistake that we made, each of the task forces has a volunteer attorney who has agreed to be counsel to the task force. And too many of the task forces got led by attorneys, and the attorneys are busy counseling and pressing matters. And what we really need are franchisee involvement. So each of those task forces need leadership that is passionate about moving the needle, and we'll be focused on that.
Okay. Anything else from any of the panelists here?
I'm just seeing an email from Amy, and I'm not quite sure I know what she's suggesting, but I think it's a good point. We're all in this together. And yes, the AFD is an association of franchisees. That means you're all part of it. And we need to emphasize the importance of staying connected with each other and being resources to each other. And one of the ways to do that is the task forces. Amy's just coming online. So Amy, why don't you speak to it yourself?
Okay, thanks, Bob. So some time ago, we had asked, or I had sent an email asking people if they would be part of the Franchisee Leadership Council directory. And it's going to be an online directory of our members who are part of the FLC. It gives you an opportunity to stay connected to each other, to use each other as resources for your own, individual purposes for business or just personal reasons. And it's also a great way for you to network with other AFD members. We are here for each other as much as we are here for the individual chapters, and you can learn a tremendous amount of information when you can speak to other franchisee members that have come before you. So I did get a great response in people who were wanting to participate in that franchisee leadership directory. But I need a few more people before we put in the effort to actually make it happen. So if you haven't responded to me, I would just ask, I'm probably going to send out another email because I do need your confirmation that you would be part of the directory. It will not be disclosed publicly. So for anyone who's worried about us publishing outside of our AFD world, at least for now. But the idea is that as you are a leader of your chapter, hopefully at some point you're not going to be fearful. And I think it's really important that people who are seeking the AFD for help will have a resource in you that they can come to and maybe ask questions before they take a leap of faith that you've made to join the AFD and see the benefits and the value. So we're going to start off with just keeping it as a member only directory. And then at some point, hopefully we'll be able to publish it more openly. But for now, that's where we're going to stand with that. So my ask of you is that you just give that to ask them for consideration to be part of the FLC directory. And again, it's really designed to be there for you as a resource and for you to connect with other members of the AFD for your own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
Sure. One of the things that I hope people understand, and I think we're going to demonstrate today, is that we respect everyone's time. We're kind of coming to an end of this session, and it's only been an hour. And I want to point out that when we do the FLC calls, we are equally respectful of your time. You will not be spending hours on the phone with us. So hopefully that'll entice you to join us when we have our calls.
And I promise to have better connections during our regular calls. Although I do want to just tap into what Amy had just said there, that one of the benefits of participating on the task force is the interaction between franchise systems. You learn so much about other franchises, challenges, successes, best practices, all that good stuff. So there is, as much as it is about giving back to the organization, you do learn a lot that can and does help your own personal franchise operation.
And just to comment a little bit further on what Rich just said, so we were on an FLC call, and this is a true perfect example of one of the benefits that you will get from it. Is we were on an FLC meeting, and two different people from different franchise systems wanted to connect because someone needed their services. So that was a great, that again is just another benefit of, there's so many chapters that we work with, and I'm sure many of you could probably use each other for services. So that's just something else that I think this would give you that opportunity. And you don't have to go through myself or Rich or Steven to make that connection. So you would be able to just find those people on your own.
So you mean they all have to come to me? Because you left me off that list.
You're at the top of the list. Who are you kidding?
Bob, you're definitely on all of our lists. Don't worry about that, Bob. I think there's one other way that they can participate and learn more, and that has to do with next year's event, right, Amy? Don't we have a slide for that?
We
or did
do.
we show that already?
No, not yet.
Oh, not
No,
yet?
I have to. I'll
And
go off
I
camera.
learned something yesterday if you're getting to that slide. I learned something yesterday is that when we have you all in one place, we can lock the door and make you go to all the booths and make you talk to all the people. But when you're out there virtually, we have no handle there. So I definitely want to get everybody back together so we can all give our sponsors the support they need. And I'm going to brag on a little bit more. I know it's not, but next year is the AFD's 30th anniversary. And it's a big deal, folks. And I hope that you will all help us be a part of that celebration.
Looking forward to it, Bob. Okay, well, I think with that, we're going to conclude. I do want to remind everyone, we were taking our break early, but I want to remind everyone to rejoin at 1:15. We have a guest speaker, FTC Commissioner Rohit Chopra will be joining us. And you want to listen to what he has to say. It's all good. It's all going to help you. And with that, I guess we'll close.